Ben, what can you tell us about the outlook for supply chain diversification?
Supply chains are efficient but fragile. Companies are starting to improve resiliency through a number of ways. First, to invest in China for China, sales to local markets, but equally looking at China Plus One strategies, moving factories to other locations such as Vietnam in order to improve resiliency in their supply chain. But China will remain the world's largest manufacturer and critical to many products. But nevertheless, we're beginning to see a redistribution of production across the world, but particularly into Southeast Asia, particularly into Vietnam.
And you have a pretty precise analysis, as precise as we can be in these situations, for how all of this will play out over the next couple of years. Could you share a bit more?
So supply chains can be slow to move. So far, the data shows us that Vietnam is capturing the largest share, whether that's 9% of consumer electronics, 8% of computers, 5% of furniture. India, Indonesia are opportunities as well, but they've been slower to develop for a range of reasons that are quite well known: infrastructure, labor laws, and so forth. So odds are that while supply chains will begin to reconfigure, we're looking at a 5-10 year or even longer process. Consumer goods will be the fastest to move. Capital goods will be much slower because they are capital intensive.
So for a business that has exposure to these different supply chains, let's say in electronics, and there's this 5 to 10 year time frame, what's your advice to them, or how should they think about the situation?
Well, companies are thinking about where the majority of their sales are. If they're in China, then there's less clearly pressure to move. If sales are in Asia Pacific, then of course China is still a major export hub. Where companies are selling a majority of their products into the United States, for instance, then worries about US-China trade tensions have encouraged some companies to move a little bit faster than others, either to friendshore primarily, and at the margin there is some reshoring.